Okay, everybody. We're bringing to order the joint meeting of the Finance Committee and the MTA Board. The main topic for today's meeting is the November MTA Financial Plan. Let's hear the safety announcement and then from public speakers.
Your safety is of the foremost importance to the MTA. Therefore, we ask that you listen and adhere to the following instructions. If you witness an emergency, notify emergency personnel in the room and call 911 immediately. Please follow any audible instructions provided through the public address system or visually on screens in the event of an emergency. If an alarm sounds, wait for a public address announcement and follow instructions. If told to go to another floor or to evacuate the building, leave all unessential items behind and use stairwell A just across the main hallway or stairwell B down the hallway past the elevators. If you have a mobility disability or cannot self-evacuate, please proceed to stairwell D or E for assistance by MTA staff or emergency personnel. An automated external defibrillator, AED, for use by trained personnel is in the main hallway just past the elevators. If you need assistance during an evacuation, please tell an MTA staff member or emergency personnel. Thank you and have a safe day.
Okay, Jonathan, are you moderating?
Yes, I am.
And my request, I think the board's request, is that we prioritize folks who haven't had a chance to speak yet, given the limited time. Go ahead.
Will do. Good afternoon. We have 25 members of the public registered to speak today. As a reminder, we ask that all public speakers adhere to the MTA's rules of conduct and decorum. Public comments must pertain to the specific items on today's meeting agenda. I would also like to remind our public speakers that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware there will be a warning beep to remind you you have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. Our first speaker is Gabina Santamaria, followed by Angela Kachinko.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabina Santamaria. I hope everybody is well because we need to work. I'm representing Staten Island today. Hopefully you listen, and please, we really, really need your help. Okay? So I'm here to talk about the problems with Omni cars. I take the bus every day, like all New Yorkers. Before I continue, I'd like to ask a question. Anybody ride the subway here? Can you please raise your hand? One person, 3. Okay, let me continue. We basically, I'm sorry? So, yeah.
Respectfully,
all right,
at
the end,
this is not a dialogue between
at
the
the
board
end,
and
okay,
the speaker.
okay.
You just need
We
to give your remarks.
basically have no options for people in Staten Island to refill their Omni cars. Omni cars is built for subway riders, and this is unfair to bus riders. We do not have subways in Staten Island. We are limited in our options, and the website sometimes does not work. And refilling a car online is simply not an option for everyone. The MTA needs to better support community members in this process. We cannot just remove metro cars without providing support for people who transition to Omni cars. We need community meetings where people can learn about Omni, get support to sign up, ask questions that they need answer to in every borough. The MTA employers need better training so they can help riders. When the riders are struggling with Omni cars, the employers often do not have the answers. And this is a problem for
Please
me
conclude your
and for
remarks.
everybody.
Thank you.
So much.
The next speaker is Angela Kachinko, followed by Trinell Thompson.
Hello, everyone. Oh, okay, hi. My name is Angela Kravchenko. I represent Stop the Noise grassroots organization and also Brightwater Towers residents at Coney Island. I also want to speak on behalf of 1,000 New Yorkers who live under the elevated trains. Noise level in our apartment exceeds 100 decibels. That's more than 45 decibels recommended by local law 113. Despite the truck lubrication and rail replacement, the noise is still there. Elevated structures without acoustic barriers do not reduce noise. 20 years ago, MTA invested $31 million in art installation called Wave Wall. That's a West 8 New York aquarium. Sorry. The art aged, but community still suffers from noise, lead paint falling off, and objects falling off the platform. So we would try to ask you, we would like to ask you to retrofit or replace aging installation with acoustic enclosure. MTA already invested in this project, so we ask you to be a good neighbor and take a look at our problem and see what could be done in reducing noise, isolating the toxic lead paint that is chipping off, and create a barrier removing the objects fallen from the platform. Thank you so much.
The next speaker is Tremel Thompson, followed by David Kupferberg.
Good morning, Chairman Lieber. I want to ask you to be fair, F-A-R-E. As you know, I'm not an employee. I have to buy a regular Omni card, Metro card, and I just can't wrap my head around the 7-day unlimited. Would it be 7 days times 4 is 28 days? There's only 1 month with 28 days. There's 4 months with 30 days. There's 7 months with 31 days. The $132 right now to currently buy a fully unlimited Metro card. What I'm asking you is, can you please develop an unlimited monthly Metro card? You're rewarding the least amount, the people who ride the system the least, and throwing to the curb the people who ride the system a lot. I guess that was the purpose for the original unlimited monthly Metro card. Can you please bring back the original or a monthly version of the Omni? The second thing I want to ask you is to be fair again, this time F-A-I-R. Labor relations and OHS is two of the worst departments in this agency. And I'm speaking as a vice president regarding that. In labor relations, we have 427 backed up grievances to make employees whole. We're talking about back pay. We're talking about old vacation, old sick time. 427. There's no backed up discipline. Just recently, this year, labor relations gave me a tape with material evidence edited. I asked labor relations over and over again, can you please provide me the tape? They said no. I did a FOIA request. 6 weeks later, I get an unedited tape, right? And this is for employee discipline. Labor relations and OHS, I don't have no idea what they're doing in this agency, but I know that you have the purview of labor relations up under you. Let's set up a meeting so I can show you exactly what I'm talking about, because I want to actually have a productive relationship. And when communication breaks down, that's why I do what I do. Let's keep communication open, and I promise we
conclude
will
your
have a better
remarks.
relationship.
Thank you. The next speaker is David Kupferberg, followed by Jason Anthony.
Good afternoon. My name is David Kupferberg, member Passengers United. Remember that the goals of the bus network redesigns are to close service gaps, expand service to transit deserts, and do both without negatively impacting the core network. For example, there are currently two service gaps in southwestern Brooklyn, on Fort Hamilton Parkway between 37th Street and 56th Street, and on 13th Avenue between 57th Street and Bay Ridge Avenue. Until 1937, there was no bridge via 13th Avenue over the entering between 62nd Street and 63rd Street. Service was routed based on this constraint. But when the bridge was complete, the routes were never changed because the solution would not be simple. The B16 could be streamlined to become a true Fort Hamilton Parkway route, but there are many small businesses and places of worship on and near 13th Avenue. A new service would have to be provided. Bay Ridge Avenue service could then be linked to the B2 via 65th Street and the B64 streamlined to serve Brooklyn VA Hospital and the neighborhood of Fort Hamilton. Yes, there is currently bus service via 60th Street and, of course, the N train nearby. Although there is plenty of capacity, the N train generally serves Manhattan and Coney Island riders. Besides, if the claim that there are duplicative services in Manhattan is valid, most of their north-south services would have to be discontinued. Another example is the B103 between Canarsie and downtown Brooklyn. The stops added to the route more than 10 years ago in Park Slope have been very successful. The B103 has become a vital link. Do not eliminate the B103 west of Brooklyn College. Instead of the proposed B81, send the B103 via Red Hook to the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal and extend the B37 via Livingston Street via Livingston Street to downtown Brooklyn. The B37 was unceremoniously cut back to the Barclays Center in 2008 with the hope of boosting ridership on the B103. The public's concerns
Please conclude
for
your
the
remarks.
bus,
Thank you.
Brooklyn bus network
Please
redesign
conclude your
is
remarks.
extremely,
Thank you.
must be addressed.
Thank
before-
you.
Okay, Jonathan, just a reminder, we welcome Mr. Kupferberg's comments, but first priority in speaking should go to folks who did not have a chance to be heard this morning, okay?
Yes.
Thanks.
The next speaker is Jason Anthony, followed by Mike Howard.
Jason Anthony was heard this morning. He's very much a well-known member of the extended family, but first, let's hear from people who have not had a chance to speak today.
Okay. The next speaker will be Mike Howard.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. It's good to be back. It's been months I haven't been coming here. Anyway, here's my story for today, my topic. My opinion about the Queens bus redesign. There's some routes I like, and some routes I dislike. Like the Lefferts Boulevard corridor. Needs to be switched. Q10 Rush should keep going south of Rockaway Boulevard as a Lefferts Boulevard extension, while the Q80 local should go east of Rockaway Boulevard, where the Q10 Rush currently runs through right now. Picketing 207th Street yards need to swap their R179s, which is car 32382 to 3327, need to swap from there to Jamaica Yards for me to see it on the E, F, and R line again. And y'all need to swap the 3000 series of the R211As from there to Coney Island Yards for the B, G, and also the weekend service for the D and Q lines. Because when the B's not running on the weekends with the R211As, y'all need to put those on the Q line and the D. You know what I mean? So what I'm saying is y'all need to keep, it's best for picking in 207th Street, keep the 4000 series of the R211As.
Please conclude your remarks. Thank you. The next speaker is Rachel Foss, followed by Brian Fitch.
Good afternoon. My name is Rachel Foss. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor for reInvent Albany. We advocate for more transparent and accountable New York government. In the coming weeks, Governor Hochul must decide whether to sign or veto legislation that would take away the MTA's ability to make decisions about how to best deploy its train operators. We believe this is an easy choice. The governor must veto this bill. We think train operations should be left to you, the MTA board and management, working together with labor. Unfortunately, our state legislators have reached way too far into micromanaging the MTA by passing this misguided and outdated legislation that, as the New York Daily News editorial board noted, has been rattling around the Capitol for 30 years. An important new report by NYU Marin Institute's Transit Costs Project found that less than 6% of the world's biggest 400 transit lines use 2 or more train operators. Of the 94% that use 1 or fewer, many are completely automated, like the JFK Air Train, and the trend globally is clearly toward automation as modern signal systems are installed. reInvent Albany agrees with the experts at the Marin Center, and we and others like Citizens Budget Commission, Regional Plan Association, the Partnership for New York City, and the Daily News have asked Governor Hochul to veto the bill. We oppose it because it will do nothing to improve service and instead add costs that will be paid for by the riders. The MTA board has approved billions in capital spending to modernize subway signals, including $4.5 billion in the 2025-29 plan, $5.7 billion in the 2020-24 plan. Let's not squander this investment. By taking full advantage of modern signals, the MTA can run existing trains more efficiently and put those savings directly into increased service, a win-win for riders and transit workers. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. The next speaker is Brian Fitch, followed by Cassie Rafucci.
Afternoon. I'm Brian Fritsch, Associate Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, PCAC. As we consider the November financial plan and move closer to a full year of congestion relief, let's take a moment to recognize the work that's gone into getting this agency on a very firm financial footing, despite lingering uncertainty around casino revenue, in sharp contrast to many U.S. transit agencies. That hasn't stopped officials in D.C. from trying to pull the rug out from under us, but we'll keep fighting in the halls of Congress and in the courts. If we weren't in such good shape, we couldn't celebrate the 219 new buses being ordered for riders today. It's an unprecedented time for bus riders, and we hope and expect the Mamdani administration will partner with the MTA to finally follow and implement the NYC Streets Plan, expand depot space, and invest in transit signal priority, as well as direct a police department to more actively monitor and enforce the law on priority bus lanes. To highlight the need for more investment from the city, last week we stood with NYPIRG Strap Hangers campaign to announce the winners of the 18th annual Pokey and Schleppy Awards, given to the city's slowest, the M42, and least reliable, the Q8, high ridership bus routes. We also spoke at length about the progress bus speeds have made since the start of congestion relief and offered a new Mazel Award for the most improved service to the M79 and SIM 32 routes that have both improved dramatically. We would also be deeply appreciative of the in administration that keeps affordability a priority by expanding the Fair Fares program. Currently, only a dismal third of eligible New Yorkers are enrolled. The program needs automatic enrollment yesterday. Coupled with an expansion of the program to at least 300% of the federal poverty level, fully free fares for the lowest income New Yorkers, and adding the commuter railroads and express buses as options, we could take this program from a good idea to one that truly transforms how people move around the city.
Thank you for your comment. The next speaker is Cassie Rafucci, followed by Eric Roman.
Good afternoon, Chairman Lieber and board members. My name is Cassie Rafucci, and I'm a member of Passengers United. Today, I would like to speak about a situation that I had with Accessori. So I was on an Accessori vehicle this past Sunday, November 16th, and I was on a broker vehicle, and the driver did not have a seatbelt on. So I had to personally say to the driver, please kindly put your seatbelt on, because he was driving without a seatbelt while transporting me to my destination. And myself, as a member of Passengers United, we would like to have the MTA not eliminate transit operators and conductors. We feel, as members of Passengers United, we should have the train operators and conductors be a part of the transit system while people are traveling. And with Accessori, I was waiting for an Accessori one day, and I have the AAR app where I was tracking my ride. Twice, 2 vehicles came up on the app, and they told me that it was going to be a red Nissan, and then another one was a black Toyota. I kept getting different information. Then when I contacted Accessori to inform them that my vehicle did not arrive, I wanted to know the status of my ride. I was told something else. Then I get a call from a driver stating that they were coming, and then I don't have the information on my AAR app. Then one vehicle comes with a female driver, and the female driver shows me my information on the iPad, and it has my information, but wrong destination address when I stated that I was being traveled to the city. Then I get a male driver who I spoke to on the phone, and they come over, and I see the vehicle going in a vehicle that has front end damage. And I felt that I was unsafe while traveling on the accessorized vehicle as an accessorized passenger. Thank you very much.
The next speaker is Eric Roman, followed by Maurice Wells.
Good morning, board members. I'm Eric Roman. I'm the Northeast Director for Jobs in America. I don't have any advice to offer you today about bus lines or how to improve Access-a-Ride. I do have some important suggestions and information to share about how we make sure that your investments in improving our transit system and upgrading the rail fleet for both the subway cars and commuter rail cars can also create good jobs. We have been coming to this board for months to urge you to use the historic investment you're about to make of nearly $11 billion in purchases of rolling stock to ensure that good jobs come out of it for New Yorkers, right? To ensure good quality rail cars that are delivered on time, and also that make sure that we're paying the workers that are manufacturing those cars good wages, good benefits, and also in a fair workplace. There is an approach, the U.S. employment plan, that this agency can use, right, that incentivizes bidders, whether it's Kawasaki, Alstom, Bombardier, or any other bidder, to ensure that as part of their proposal to the MTA to sell rail cars, that they're providing good jobs, that they're committing to create a certain quantity of jobs, and they're providing and guaranteeing wages that are family sustaining for New Yorkers. We were very concerned after coming to this agency 2 months ago, sharing information in our recently published report about Kawasaki Railcar and the poor working conditions inside the plants, including here in New York, that then last month you awarded a non-competitive contract to Kawasaki. We would really like to have a meaningful dialogue with this agency moving forward about how we can ensure there's competitive bidding for these contracts moving forward, and that we're, again, incentivizing good jobs through the use of the U.S. employment plan. Thank you.
The next speaker is Maurice Wells, followed by Norm Miller.
Good afternoon. There should be two-person crews on subway trains. As a retired conductor, I know how important conductors are to the operation of train service. Conductors observe the platform when trains are leaving the station. If a person falls near the edge of the platform when the train is leaving the station, conductors can pull the emergency brake valve. A train operator has enough responsibility of trying to operate a train and also trying to operate doors. A train operator cannot observe the platform and also operate the train when leaving the station. Also, if a train has to be evacuated, it is very hard for one person to evacuate a whole train. With the conductor on the train, the conductor can help with the evacuation. Also, when I worked as a conductor, I would work the overnight tour. Most of the passengers would ride in the conductor's car. Of course, that's where they felt the safest. All these so-called experts who do not know how important the conductor is to the operation of the train.
The next speaker is Norm Miller.
I'm with the New York Public Interest Research Group. Yes, I'm here today to talk about the interlining. I feel like the interlining is very beneficial. It helps subway service move faster, reliable, free of delays and any congestion. It's amazing that you guys are taking a step forward in the interlining the F and M lines between Manhattan and Queens. But also look into the IRT Eastern Parkway subway line in Brooklyn, which is served by the 2, 3, 4, and 5 lines. Okay, because over 90,000 passengers are served along that corridor on a daily basis, and and with over at least 1,000 delays overall, the IRT Eastern Parkway line needs to be fixed, and it needs to be de-interlined with the 2 and 3 going to Flatbush, or maybe the two and the new number 8 subway line going to Flatbush, and the 4 and 5 to Utica in new lots, and with either the free 3 or the new number 8 line still having its connections to the IRT New Lots Avenue line to and from New Lots Avenue. New Lots Avenue. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Carson Carter, followed by Matt McMillan.
Hi there, MTA board. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I am coming to you from Newburgh, New York, at the northern end of service attention, it seems. We have been coming to you for months about our MTA ferry service across the Beacon, across the Hudson, connecting Newburgh and Beacon, asking you to restore this service. We're going to be having thousands of units coming online, housing units, over the next 3 years in both municipalities, with really no advancement for the West Shore in commuter service. We've actually been stepping backwards this year. I'm part of a group called Save the Ferry that has been raising community awareness about this, and the sort of overarching feedback from people is they moved to this area, they live in this area because the MTA serves it. You are a crucial link, and this ferry service needs to operate 7 days a week. It needs to operate on an hourly schedule basis, akin to our sister service in Ossining and Haverstraw, in a way that would actually be usable to people in this region. It is a vital service going forward for the health of this place and for people's belief in the MTA as our regional transit provider. And we hope you will give attention to the restoration of this service and to expanding service on the West Shore going forward. Thanks so much.
The next speaker is Matt McMillan, followed by Lolita DeVilio.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew McMillan, representing TW Local 100. TW represents thousands of members who operate, maintain, and repair New York City subway cars. We expect the MTA to take responsibility to ensure that its public contracts deliver not just trains, but good jobs, safe jobs, and fair jobs. In September, TW Local 100 president, along with members, rallied outside of the MTA buildings before participating in public comments. We shared what Jobs to Move America and Cornell University documented in their recent report. In it, 180 surveyed Kawasaki workers reported below average pay and high rates of injury on the job. When corners are cut on the factory floor, it's not just workers who suffer. The riders and communities who depend on these trains, they feel the impact. Our members at TW Local 100 also see these problems every day in our shops and yards, which is why we're baffled by the MTA awarding a $1.5 billion non-competitive subway contract to Kawasaki without resolving these concerns first. The short notice of this award speaks to a disregard of the stakeholders that have been sharing their concerns throughout this year, along with the community at large. The MTA has an opportunity to ensure that Kawasaki delivers not just trains, but good, safe, and fair jobs by adopting the U.S. employment plan, the $11 billion investment in new rail cars, a proven tool to raise standards when enforced. Just as the MTA has a responsibility to the people it serves, it has a responsibility for the impact of the purchases made. We also continue to ask the MTA to take steps to resolve the problems at Kawasaki by negotiating a community benefits agreement with Jobs to Move America and their community partners. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker is Lolita DeVilio. I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lolita Devilova. I'm here today because of our community has lived with unacceptable and entirely preventable danger at our local West 8 subway station for nearly 20 years, ever since it has been reconstructed. The station's low fence design has turned it into a platform for vandals who hurl objects into pedestrians and cars below. And those are not small objects. These are pieces of cement, gallons of milk, motor oil canisters, filled glass and plastic water bottles, and even construction cones. People have been hit, cars have been smashed, families have walking under the station have been put at risk for 2 decades. We have submitted a long trail of complaints to MTA. We attach police reports, photos of damaged vehicles, photos of the objects thrown, video recordings, and eyewitness accounts. The situation has been so severe that local newspapers and TV stations have covered it, underscoring the urgent need for action. There is only one solution. The upper platform fence needs to be elevated for at least 1 car length. MTA appraisal put that limited fix at $2 million and then left it out of capital budget. A $2 million price tag for one small segment of the fencing simply defies common sense. And while the debate continues, the community remains exposed. We are told that the station is artwork designation, is delaying safety improvements. Let me be clear. No artwork, no aesthetic choice, no historic classification should ever take precedence over human safety. Meanwhile, the station physically deteriorating. If the protected status prevents safety upgrades, then status must be modified or removed. Our elected officials and community board are helping, and transit police, but engagement alone won't stop next cement chunk from being thrown into passerby. Only MTA can fix this design flaw and that created this danger. We're asking you forcefully and urgently.
Please conclude your remarks.
Thank you. I pretty much stated it. Thank you.
We have reached our allotted time of 30 minutes of public comment sessions. At this time, we ask remaining registered speakers to stand by as we transition to a separate live recording. If you are a remote public speaker participating on Zoom, please stand by and wait for further instructions from the moderator. Public speakers in the room, please join us in conference room 4. This concludes our public comment session.
Okay. Thank you to the public speakers. Paige, once again, do we have a quorum?
Yes, we have a quorum.
Okay. My remarks. So, thank you to everybody, especially the public speakers, for joining us for this month's meeting of the MTA Board. It's November. That means that for a lot of people, that brings to mind turkeys. At the MTA, November means budgets. Now, like turkey, budgets can sometimes make people a little sleepy, but this is an important operation, and the budget deserves our fullest attention. Jay Patel, our CFO, is going to present in a few minutes the latest financial plan. But I first of all want to do a little table setting, and it won't contain my usual litany about MTA's progress on ridership, on service, and on crime, and the capital program. There is good news on every one of those fronts. You heard from the agency presidents and others this morning. But today is about the operating budget, our $20 billion operating budget, and rightly so. We are about to implement a 4% fare increase come January 4th, and the public wants to know, is this agency being well managed financially? The answer, folks, is yes, and here's why I can say that with confidence, if I can operate. As Jay's going to go into more detail about, we have a balanced budget for 2026, balanced. The out years remain slightly trickier, but just take a look at how much better we are doing than we were 4 years ago. Our total deficit over the 2025 to 29 5-year financial plan period is about 0.5% of our budget. Compare that to back in 2021 when I started in this and this group came together. Back then, the MTA was looking at a $2.5 billion annual deficit, a billion with a B, and that was about 14% of our budget. We have been able to get back on track thanks to amazing support from Albany In 2023, Governor Hochul, with the support of the legislature, stood up for MTA riders. We cannot forget this, and allowed us to have enough money to stay afloat without cutting service, without doing any layoffs. Thanks to the governor, the MTA is not, and we are alone among major U.S. transit agencies, we are not grappling with 20% fare increases like NJT or SEPTA, and we're not facing the huge service cuts being contemplated in Chicago, in San Francisco, and in Philadelphia. But another major factor in this agency's fiscal stability has been the cost savings that we've achieved in recent years. Now, that cost savings was a condition of the 2023 budget deal, but it was originally proposed by us because we knew we needed to be part of the solution as well as going to the legislature. And we committed to come up with a $400 million package of efficiencies in a single, in a two-year period. And folks, not only are we meeting that $400 million goal, we've surpassed it. In 2025, we are actually hitting a $500 million level in savings, all of them without cuts or any reduction, cuts in people or any reductions to service. How are we doing it? Phase one of this cost savings program achieved the $500 million in savings through a range of improvements. For example, we adjusted the frequency of rail car maintenance based on data analysis. Increasingly, we're using data, and a lot of this is being crunched not only in the operating agencies, but also in our strategic initiatives group. But we use that to adjust the frequency with which we do certain kinds of maintenance activities. We are using technology to optimize railroad and crew scheduling. We increased energy efficiencies by installing LED lighting all over the system. And we are evaluating usage patterns on our computer systems, which are ubiquitous, to eliminate wasteful software licenses. Everybody knows that somewhere on your computer are all kinds of licenses that are for software products that you don't actually use. We went through the whole agency and make sure to get rid of those, make sure we weren't paying for what was not being used. We renegotiated all of our deals with cell phone carriers, and we took away cell phones and laptops and iPads from folks who weren't using them. And as I always say, I know because they took away my iPad. And we're realizing savings on from the transition to tap and ride, which is not what motivated us to move to the more modern system, but not having to go around and collect money from all those MetroCard machines is going to save money. Now we are taking the next step. We're shooting for another $250 million in annual efficiency savings. The plan that Jay is going to present has us going from a 2027 deficit that was $345 million when you saw it back in the July plan. It's down to $160 million, with additional reductions in deficits to come in 2028 and 2029. As a result of these plans for additional efficiencies, the November financial plan significantly cuts the projected deficits in the out years that we had been looking at back in July. All told, we expect to achieve more than $2 billion in cost savings over the next 4 years, $2 billion. And we're cutting costs. I'll never stop talking about this, so apologies in advance. We're cutting costs while we're running a ton more service than before COVID, and this is true on all our operations. We have more service on 13 subway lines, including the A and the L, as Demetrius announced last week. We are running more bus service, in large part because of the additional $35 million that we invested in the Queens bus system as a result of the bus network redesign. We are running more railroad service across the board. And the cost savings are being delivered despite the fact that we're spending $300+ million a year on operating that Grand Central Madison facility in the basement of Grand Central Station, a 700,000 square foot facility that we didn't have in our budget from before COVID. So figuring out how to do more with less has been the daily priority of the MTA these last few years, and I think we're doing it pretty well. We're also focused on the transition to tap and ride. This week, Shanifa, Demetrius, and the customer service team have been out helping folks trade in their old Metro cards for free new Omni cards. We want to get the last few holdouts on board by the end of the year to make the transition. We are nearly at full adoption of Tap and Ride. 90% of customers have switched from MetroCard to Omni. All the new vending machines for Omni have been installed, and we're well ahead of where we expected to be in terms of the penetration of Tap and Ride among our riders. We didn't expect to be at 90% at this stage. We're ahead of the plan, and the finish line is in sight. Now, this transition is going to bring us into line with all the other major systems around the world, which use the digital approach rather than tokens or even the MetroCard system. The advantages are clear. We heard from the podium some real concerns that we are in the process of addressing about transparency and certainly the mechanics of Omni. But it is a huge thing that you don't have to anymore put 20, 50, or $100 on a MetroCard in advance. You won't anymore have to prepay to get a $34 weekly or $132 for a monthly. In every one of those cases, people were being asked to front the MTA money. It's a loan. And in many cases, they weren't fully using the benefit of it. And the MTA was, in effect, getting money, in effect, for free from riders who weren't using the full benefit of those unlimited cards. And there's an equity issue also that the unlimited should not be available only to people who can shell out money up front. And we are moving in the right direction. So as I said before, Tap and Ride is going to unlock a lot of new equity advantages, but also new possibilities for us to address challenges of affordability. Affordability is a priority that we share with the mayor-elect. I was asked this week on the Brian Lehrer Show whether we are expecting some friction with the new administration. What I said was, no, we are thrilled that transit got so much attention in the mayoral campaign in general, and in particular from the mayor-elect. We are blessed to have a pro-transit governor who has done enormous amounts to keep the MTA in good shape and to help us move forward. And we're blessed to have a pro-transit incoming mayor. That's where we want to be. Are there differences to work out about how best to support the affordability agenda? Yes, but it shouldn't be lost on anyone that we've never had a more pro-transit combo in City Hall and in Albany than we are looking at starting in 2026. This is a positive moment for the MTA. It's positive for our riders, and it's positive for everybody who cares about transit in New York and in the United States. So with that, let me turn it over to Jay to go through the budget, and then we'll take questions and get into the details. Jay.
Thank you, Chair. So before I get into the details, I just want to give the board sort of set the stage for what the November plan is. It includes the 2025 final forecast. It's the 2026 final proposed budget. It updates any changes to revenue and expenses. And also, as a reminder, no action is required of this board today. The board is asked to review the 2026 budget, ask questions, and then we'll take a vote in December for the 26 plan. Before I go into all the details, I just wanted to say that I think, we should be really proud of this budget and where we stand as MTA in our fiscal stability and responsibility on the budget. We are, as you heard the chair say, one of the first agencies to resolve our fiscal cliff issues, and that is why today we can present a budget with very small deficits that are less than 1% of our total operating budget. So one look I want to give the board is the results for 2025. We have 10 months of data. Overall, we are on budget for revenues and expenses. In fact, the expenses are below budget by 1.3%. Fare box revenue and toll revenue are on budget. Dedicated tax receipts are slightly above the forecast. PMT and our mortgage recording tax are a little bit higher than what we had projected originally in July. Operating expenses are $175 million below budget year to date. Most importantly, results incorporate the $500 million in operating efficiencies already built into the budget, and as you can tell, they're being achieved by each of the operating agencies and the HQ departments. As the chair noted, we're still spending less than 25 than we did in 2019, even as we increase service and support growing ridership. So let's get into the details of the November financial plan. As a reminder, the July financial plan forecasted deficits that started in 2027. They started at $345 million, growing to $428 million in 2029, for a total of $1.1 billion of deficits in the 5-year plan. For November, we've done is, through operating efficiencies, decrease those deficits. In fact, in 2027, the deficit is about half at what we had projected in July. Overall, the total deficits have shrunk by $400 million to $700 million over the plan. One of the primary drivers is the next round of MTA operating efficiencies, which will build on the progress that we started in 2023. So what's driving the reduction in the deficit? First, we're working hard to reduce expenses in the areas we can control. In a moment, I'll speak more about the next round of operating efficiencies, but first I wanted to go into some of the things that we're seeing of cost drivers. Across the industry, not just the MTA, we're starting to see that tort lawsuit awards are higher, which increases our claims budget line item. We're also seeing additional funding requirements for pension obligations based on actuary assessments. And as we invest in new capital assets to modernize our system, we also need money to maintain those sophisticated technology-enabled equipment. So we're seeing some of those expenses starting to build into the budget. For example, as we install elevators, escalators, they need to be maintained by in-house forces, so we need to add some of those costs to the budget. One item that I want to also highlight, through the debt financing team, we're also saving on debt service as we refinance and lower our financing cost. Now let's turn to a little bit on what's driving the changes for the operating side. Since COVID, we've launched our 2023 efficiency program, which ramps up to $500 million, which are recurring in 2025. We're now aiming higher. The next round of operating efficiencies, totaling an additional $675 million over the next 4 years, will be tougher and will take longer to realize. Agencies are taking immediate steps for next year, which include $75 million in near-term efficiencies, which will be delivered in 2026. I've highlighted some of the initiatives here. The one that I will talk about is for Metro North. They're decreasing spending on materials by leveraging AI to forecast new materials and supplies for just-in-time delivery. In parallel, they're developing multi-year projects that will require planning and in some cases upfront investment. By 2029, we are targeting an additional $250 million in new annual operating efficiencies on top of the $500 million already built into the budget. What that means is by 2029, $750 million in annual recurring efficiencies will be built into this budget. We'll continue to keep the board closely updated as we advance those targets. Through sustained cost containment efforts, the MTA has kept real costs below 2019 levels, even while expanding service, launching new initiatives like Fare Evasion Reduction Program, GCM, and other increases in service. Although pressures such as healthcare, pensions, and debt service continue to grow faster than inflation, our operating efficiencies program ensures we manage what is within our control and use our resources cost consciously as possible. As a practical matter, we are still cheaper than what we were in 2019. Next, let me walk you through some of the trends reflected in the November plan. A reminder, Farebox was once 38% of our revenue. Now it is down to 26%. We continue to project steady growth across the system, reaching within $220 million of pre-pandemic levels by 2029 for Farebox revenue. A little highlight on this chart, the green is the bus revenue from bus Farebox. In 2025, we're projecting $877 million, which grows to $1.1 billion in 2029. That's 20% of our total Farebox revenue. Subways is $2.9 billion, or almost $3 billion in 2025, growing to $3.4 billion. And the railroads currently projected at $1.3 billion, growing to $1.5 billion. Subways and buses represents about 80% of our total Farebox revenue. A major source of revenue for the MTA comes from real estate taxes, including the mortgage recording tax. This is not a new chart, but we want to make sure that everybody realizes that mortgage recording tax at a high of in 2022 has dropped in 23 and 24, but is slightly being projected to increase to its 10-year average by 2029. No, these are real dollars. In real dollars, the MTA has lost growth in this revenue source. These revenues are volatile. The trend is moving, but however, the trend is moving in the right direction, and we'll continue to monitor this closely as the market's conditions improve. This is an overall picture of total revenues for MTA. Looking across the dedicated taxes and subsidies, we're projecting steady revenue growth over the plan period. As a result, we expect revenues to keep broadly in line with the pace of our expense growth. This outlook reflects growth in all the major categories: tolls, Farebox revenue, and subsidies and other revenue. Together, these revenue streams form the foundation of a stable financial plan over the forecast period. To close the financial overview, these pie charts break down the 2026 final proposed budget, which is $21.3 billion by sources and uses. Over 1/3 of our funding comes from fares and tolls, with the balance coming primarily from dedicated taxes and subsidies, as well as other funding sources, city and New York City and CDOT. On the expense side, labor remains our largest cost, accounting for roughly 70% of the budget when excluding debt service, which is attributable to capital funding. On the next slide, let me take you through some of the key assumptions built into the plan and some of the risks we are monitoring. This plan maintains the discipline framework set out in July, including modest recurring fare and toll increases scheduled in 27 and 29. It also takes a very conservative approach to the FEMA COVID claim revenues that we are expecting of $600 million in revenue. Previously, if you recall, in 2025 and 2026, we had assumed $300 million each year for the COVID federal relief dollars. What this plan does is take that money and reallocate it on a 3-year basis for $200 million each year. We're also expecting casino licenses to be awarded by the end of 2025, which generate roughly or up to 3 $500 million licenses over a 3-year period. We've projected the award of the license for 26, 27, and 28, so we've built the budget on $500 million in each of those years, with 28 seeing the first tax receipts from the casinos. So we've taken a very conservative approach with the casino money. This plan also assumes the state will extend the paratransit cost-sharing legislation so that the city's reimbursement can continue to be at the enhanced level. A reminder, the paratransit funding is at a cost sharing of 80% or 50% plus $165 million of a cap. It runs through June 30th, 2027, and then it would fall to a 50% cost share from the city and the MTA. Our financial plan assumes 80% reimbursement from the city on a continual basis after the legislation expires. And then on the last, we remain committed to strengthening our operating efficiencies program, sustaining at least $500 million in annual savings, and building on those cost gains over time to an additional $250 million, delivering a total annual savings of $750 million by 2029. Risk. We always want to highlight any risks that we see in the financial plan. The first one is if there's a slower economy, particularly a weaker real estate market. This would reduce our dedicated tax receipts that help fund the MTA. I went over the casinos. If there's a risk casinos not being awarded, we would lose about $500 million on an annual basis of one-time revenue from them. FEMA, again, I've taken the conservative approach in the budget, but it is a $200 million annual for 3 years. Labor increases, as a reminder, wage increases are budgeted at 2% in the financial plan starting in 2026. Anything above a 2% that's not paid out of the contract itself is a cost to the MTA, about $150 million for each percentage point of an increase. And then paratransit funding, the legislation extension is required to maintain a balance in the financial plan. So allow me to conclude with a brief summary. The MTA's financial condition is strong and we remain balanced for next year. And you don't have to take my word for it. Our credit ratings have upgraded us based on improved financial performance. This is a remarkable turnaround just from a few years ago when we were staring down the COVID fiscal cliff. With the critical support of the governor, the state legislature, and this board, the organization has rebounded, setting new ridership records, improving reliability, and expanding the network to serve more New Yorkers. We still have work ahead. Rising costs in areas largely outside of our control continue to put pressure on the operating budget. But we faced similar challenges before. We have delivered $500 million in recurring efficiencies in recent years, and I'm confident in this plan, in this team, in our ability to continue to improve service while managing costs and keeping fares affordable. I'm happy to take questions from this board.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay, and thank you to your team for a ton of work that went into bringing us this budget that you've just described. Just a tip of the hat to the operating agencies who have borne the burden of the efficiency effort to date and who have delivered on that. And the three gentlemen sitting down that end and Kathy sitting down the end on the right have done yeoman's work in making sure that we can hit the $500 million number, and they've already begun to plan for how we're going to capture the next $250 million in annual savings. So that is their work and their team's work. So tip of the hat to them on that. I'll take questions and comments and on the financial plan. Remember, this is a presentation so that you have weeks to chew on this and raise questions, and all of which ends with more discussion and then a vote in December. So we don't need to resolve anything now, but happy to take questions. Ms. Midori, Valdivia, then Mr. Zuckerman.
Thank you, Jay. Appreciate the presentation. Would love to get a list. I know you usually have something called like the budget reduction program and line items. If board members can be provided that list as well as the operating efficiencies list as we mull over this plan, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
I would just say that the summary document, volume 1, is posted. It includes the budget reductions and a list of the operating efficiencies, but we'll make sure we'll send those pages separated to the board.
Mr. Zuckerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Three things I'd like to say. First of all, well done to our new CFO. This is the right person for leadership at this moment. You can tell that by we're staying balanced. That's an essential part of not only what we're obliged to do, but what is necessary for the future, so well done. The second is I think you're doing the right things. You're focused on what we can affect. You've been creative in making things happen, and you've been forward-looking. I think those bogeys, those deficits, since I've been on this board for over a decade, are always a couple of years out, except with the one exception that last year we had 5 years of a balanced budget, but I think being attentive to that future is essential. I think we're sound budgeters and forecasters. Thirdly, let me tee up two cautions about this budget. I'll break into two areas. One of the things that we can control and of the things we cannot control. So the things we can control, we've got two things. We have a series, and I applaud you for finding costs in the costs that we can control, the, if you will, the adjustable, attainable costs. That's a real small portion of our budget, what we actually can control. We have an enormous amount of the budget we can't change. We have labor agreements, we have fixed utilities. There's a lot we can't control. So at some point, and I've been saying this for a long time, so maybe it'll never happen, but at some point you go from fat to muscle to bone, and I don't know where we are. And I do say, I agree with you, Mr. Chair, our operating agency presidents have done a great job finding those opportunities. But at some point, you're going to run out of things that you can control, and you have to start addressing the things that we don't have direct control, or change the fact that we can't control them. And obviously, fares, you're being very judicious about, having very predictable 2% a year roughly, below inflation fare increases. That does give us the need or the opportunity, if things get bad, to drive fares up. But I want to also talk about the things we can't control. A lot of the revenue streams we have seem heterogeneous. We got real estate, we got the payroll mobility tax, the petroleum business tax, we got the urban tax, we've got credits and subsidies and grants from all kinds of agencies. Sometimes I can't remember the alphabet soup of all the things we have. And they're diversified. And if anyone here has any stocks, you know that if you have about 20 stocks, you're kind of diversified and you miss out on the shocks of any one stock. Except if anyone's been tracking the stock market, you kind of know it's all kind of correlated, that it all kind of moves at the same time. And I think that's sort of the same issue we face with all our heterogeneous or supposedly heterogeneous sources of revenue. If the economy of this city or of this state or of this region starts to sputter, it's going to affect real estate. It will affect ridership. It will affect the payroll mobility tax. It all comes together. And I think it is very incumbent upon this board to continue speaking, talking softly, and maybe even yelling about the need to keep a stable economic environment for all economic groups in this city. Because if we undermine the health of the economics of this region, it's a real problem across the board. And you're doing everything you can with the things we can control, but boy, let's be mindful of the things we can. Thank you.
Well, it's really good points. I mean, I would call attention, sort of, thank you, Neil, and thank you for always being, one of our leaders on thinking about budgeting and financial plans. Among the things that we officially don't control but are on Jay's level of risk are things that we could have, each of us has political and other relationships, we could have input into. The FEMA, the FEMA risk is real. We have a $600 million nut of what FEMA owes us for COVID-era cleaning that took place at the beginning of the pandemic. And that was, we put in the application, or the state put in the application, and money was promised under the first Trump administration to fund that. But it hasn't yet come from Washington. That application's been sitting for a while. So there, we all of us, and I'm looking at, Mark, we need to talk to the delegation from Long Island that may have some influence here, and we need to all of us marshal our relationships to make sure that that promise, which was made under, again, the first Trump administration, not a Biden-era promise, is made good on. Likewise, the paratransit formula, which is in effect penalizing the MTA for all of the incremental growth of our ridership, because the 80% cost sharing by the city has been capped, and we're well above that cap in terms of costs and ridership. That needs to be changed. I'm looking over at my labor friends. That needs to be changed also. All of this has an impact on our ability to deal with our labor agreements, which are coming due, obviously. And we need to make sure that we don't, that the paratransit formula does not continue to penalize the MTA for doing a good job in attracting more paratransit riders, which is what it's doing right now. And finally, the tort issues. Torts have been soaring as a piece of our budget. That's the claims for civil claims for slip and falls and all kinds of negligence claims and so on. It's a bigger problem in the state of New York. It's not a secret that insurance is exploding in the state of New York, but we actually have to pay out claims, and the experts are telling us you need to carry bigger numbers in your budget, right? So all of those things are risks to this budget that the board, as well as management, can have some impact on as we move towards another legislative session. So discussion to follow, but I just want to make sure we're all clear that those are big risks for us, and we need to work together to address them. Other questions or comments at this time? Melva Miller.
Thank you for laying that out, Chairman, about the risks. And, there's probably some we didn't mention, but I was wondering if this board or even the committee has performed a risk management exercise to think about those risks, categorize them, and then come up with mitigation efforts as a board, not necessarily just as, as an agency, but how the board can also help and put actual steps to mitigate some of these risks.
Yeah, I mean, I called it out because I think we want to do that, have that discussion together between now and the end of the year. So going into the legislative session, that we're all firing on all cylinders on those couple issues, and maybe others as well. So happy to schedule something that's specific to those risks and all the risks, if that would be productive. Happy to schedule it. Okay. Other questions or comments? Plenty of opportunity. Please. I say to the board every year, please, submit the questions through the normal channels, or just let us know what issues you may want more information on as you evaluate what's been presented today and what's been submitted through Director's Desk. But this is, I think this is a really solid plan to build on. Remember, 0.5% of deficits is a long way from where we were a couple years ago, so well done. There's no vote that's called for, obviously, this year, so we do have to take some actions. Yeah, Finance Committee, the Finance Committee process. Jay, so go ahead with the regular Finance Committee process, if you would.
Sure, we have one action item for finance. It's the CRZ bond resolution. Finance, we're seeking approval of the proposed congestion relief zone toll revenue obligation resolution. Approval of a bond resolution is a three-step process, and today's approval is the final step required by law. Last month, the TBTA Board approved submitting this resolution to the Capital Program Review Board, and the CPRB approved it earlier this month. We are now returning to the board for final approval. As we discussed last month, this resolution will enable us to deliver the $15 billion portion of the 2020 to 2024 capital program and fund key transit and commuter rail projects. We will rely on a mix of PAYGO and bond financing from the congestion relief zone notes, and bonds are essential to making this funding possible. In summary, we recommend that the board approve the CRZ resolution to maintain the momentum of funding critical transit and commuter rail investments supported by those revenues.
Okay. I'll make the motion. May I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Mahaltzis. All in favor of the bond resolution? Any opposition or abstention? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. Resolution is approved. Jay, go ahead with additional Finance Committee information items.
Sure, we have a couple of informational items. In the Finance Committee book, you'll find the proposed 2026 work plan, as well as the Finance Committee charter. A couple of transaction updates. We executed on October 28th, 2025. We issued $230 million of TBTA second subordinate revenue bond anticipation notes. It was a yield of 2.6% and a final maturity of May 15, 2026. Also, we have upcoming, TBTA is expecting to issue up to $800 million of payroll mobility tax bond anticipation notes between now and early next year to finance transit and commuter projects. That's the only information.
Did the rate reflect the recent rating improvement?
It was a little bit lower.
Yeah, that's the good news. Is you get a rating improvement, you pay less interest, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at your colleagues on the bench there, yeah?
The upgrades, technically the upgrades were on transportation revenue bonds. The notes were sold on a different credit. So it's not directly impacted by the rating upgrades we received over the summer. But some of the refunding savings that were part of this budget and the financial plan were transportation revenue bonds, were result of the transportation revenue refunding transaction, and that refunding definitely benefited from the upgrades.
Our exhausted board happy for a moment. Okay. Anything else? Nothing else, Jay? Okay. Procurements to Lizette Camillo.
Thank you. Excuse me, there are 3 MTA headquarter procurement items this month. The first item is a request that the board approve the award of a competitively negotiated personal services retainer contract to a pool of 17 consulting firms to provide as-needed technical and management consulting services in support of MTA's Enterprise Asset Management Program. Each contract will be established on a $0 basis with individual work assignments or tasks to be issued through a mini RFP process conducted among some or all of the selected firms. The contract term is 7 years with 3 one-year options. It is also requested that the board authorize the MTA Deputy Chief Procurement Officer to approve the exercise of the 3 options pending availability of funding. Our EAM program uses detailed information that is collected about all of our assets to make more informed, transparent, and data-driven decisions to optimize resources and lower the cost of maintaining system performance. The cost of these contractual services will be to improve on the foundations that have been established. By managing assets uniformly across the agencies, the MTA can, through common business practices, economies of scale, and data sharing, improve asset utilization and performance, reduce asset-related operating costs, reduce costs, and optimize scheduled work. The total estimated value of the contract is $135 million. The second item is a request that the board approve an 8-month extension of the miscellaneous service contract awarded to Automotive Rentals, Inc. for fleet management services. through August 2026 and add funding in the amount of $15.7 million. The requested funding and extension are necessary to ensure the continuation of the Fleet Maintenance Services Program while a replacement contract is awarded that has already been solicited. Fleet management services provided under this contract include routine maintenance and repair services for light, medium, and heavy-duty non-revenue vehicles. This is critical in continuing operations of MTA's fleet of 3,200-plus vehicles. The third and final item for the board to approve the modification of the miscellaneous service contract awarded to Cubic Transportation Systems for the new fare payment system Omni in order to procure 30 customer service point-of-sale devices. These devices are used for both direct customer service and internal operations to process Omni transactions for customers like enrolling in reduced fare customers, selling and reloading Omni cards, and account management. These devices will be deployed at customer service centers, at our walk-in center, or on mobile sales fleet. The devices will support increased station operations and customer service efforts related to the transition of remaining MetroCard customers to Omni and to support the opening of the new customer service centers. The base contract called for a fixed number of point-of-sale terminals and provided for the fixed unit pricing for additional devices. The total estimated cost for this modification is $1.4 million. I move that this is all of the.
Okay. Any questions, comments? I'm just going to say non-revenue vehicles are expensive, part of our budget. The new procurement that's underway, we're trying, what you're proposing, it would extend the current services to allow us to complete the procurement. But the new procurement is going to try to squeeze down what we're spending on this. Would you explain that to the board?
So yes, we are soliciting a new RFP that covers all of our service needs. And one of the areas where we're going to negotiate and make sure to evaluate all of the vendors is on the costs offered to provide these services. A lot of negotiation will go in thereafter to really to be very cost conscious of how we pay this current vendor and the network of auto body repair shops or auto shops across the territory.
This is one of the areas where we're going to try to save some money. I mean, I'm looking down at my friends down the end. Our non-revenue fleets are very expensive, and other agencies, including the City of New York, have made progress in reducing costs, and we're trying to do the same. Midori Valdivia.
Thank you. Lisette, I would like to understand more. So this is a continuation of a contract. I noticed that the vendor is in New Jersey and would love to continue economic investment and development here. So are there any requirements as to the next procurement contract around like location?
No, we can't.
Shouldn't there be? Given
Actually, we have to open up procurements for the market.
Yeah.
And we actually aren't able to require a geographic requirement as long as they can actually perform the services that we need and require.
And they would be cheaper potentially. And I assume when you did the procurement last time, that was cheaper than.
We actually, yes, we use the same vendor that the city uses for the same services.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay. I'll move the items. May I have a second? Looking around. Thank you, Dr. Rizzo. All in favor of the procurements? Any opposition or abstention?
I abstain on the, I vote no on the cubic.
You want to articulate?
I think we should figure out all the other problems we have at cubic before we give them more money.
Okay. Yeah?
Sorry, I don't know if we can open this up for discussion or if we can even vote on the
I
three
think we already
procurements.
voted, but
Yeah,
we
okay.
can.
There's a motion on the floor, right?
All right, but there was a vote underway, but
Yeah.
you want to?
No, I mean,
You
I
can
also.
comment after the fact.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead, please.
I abstain as well, but I will comment after the fact since there's a vote on the floor.
Okay.
You're abstaining
Hang
for
on.
cubic?
For cubic, correct,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Just to be clear, this is the acquisition of.
I know.
Of technology so that we can actually service the customers in the customer service centers. Okay. So you're abstaining and you're voting no. All right. Okay. Well, I think that's completed the item. Let's go. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I'm also voting no on the cubic item. Thanks.
Onward. So we have 2 no votes and abstention. We have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. What?
4. It should be 4.
1.
It should be 4. So it passes.
Okay. Okay. We have the items carry. Thank you. Mr. Florio for the real estate items, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real estate has 1 administrative action item, and we have 6 transactional action items, one of which is for transit-oriented development. Paul Januszewski of MTA's Transit-Oriented Development Group will present the second transaction item. The first is an administrative item for Metro-North Railroad, and it's an amendment of the Grand Central Terminal event fee schedule policy. This is to take a fairly antiquated pricing system and make it more market-driven, in line with what other venues are charging for events. The second item is the sale of Hudson Yards development rights to the related companies, and Paul, I'll turn it over to Paul.
Thank you, David. This item includes 2 requests. First, it's to approve MTA policies and procedures governing the sale of Eastern Rail Yards transferable development rights, or TDRs, and authorization to proceed with future TDR sales. And second, to approve the next sale, which would be 110,227 square feet of TDRs. In 2006, the board approved a rail yards agreement between the MTA and the city governing the sale of TDRs from the Eastern Rail Yard. This agreement permitted the city, through its subsidiary HYIC, to administer the sale of TDRs and to keep revenues for the first $200 million in TDR sales plus interest. After reaching that threshold, future revenues from TDR sales go to the MTA per that agreement, and the MTA would have an option to take over as administrator of these sales. City passed this $200 million threshold in 2017, and the MTA has been receiving all revenue from TDR sales since that time. The MTA is now electing to take over as administrator of future TDR sales. So today we're seeking approval of a pricing policy document governing the TDR sales process. MTA previously approved this pricing policy when the city was administrator, and we're now updating it to reflect the MTA's new role as administrator. We're also seeking authorization to proceed with future TDR sales as governed by this pricing policy. And then lastly, we're seeking authorization to proceed with the first sale of TDRs with MTA as administrator, which, as David said, will be a sale to Related of 110,227 square feet of TDRs at a price of $25,076,711. Thank you.
The other MTA item, Mr. Chairman, is a lease with 111 Washington Avenue LLC. It's a relocation of the Government and Community Relations Office from one suite to a brand new one at 111 Washington Avenue in Albany. The fourth item is also an office lease, an extension of lease for transit at 2735 Jackson Avenue for administrative office space. And the final 3 items are for the MTA Long Island Railroad, and they include retail space with Mohammed Afzal at the Long Beach Station, a lease renewal for Alzamora Commercial Holdings for EAP office space at 300 Old Country Road, and lastly, a license with Liba Realty for the use of right-of-way for adjacent storage and parking under the viaduct in Valley Stream. That's it for the action item, sir.
Discussion or questions or comments? In that case, may I have a motion to approve? Mr. Herbst, second, Mr. Zuckerman? Yes. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention?
I have to abstain from the related TDR. We do
Okay.
business with them.
Note that Ms. Mahaltzis has recused on the real estate, the TDR sale item. Otherwise, the items are approved. That concludes the Finance Committee portion. Mr. Zuckerman, yes.
I'm sorry to be retroactive, but I was not paying enough attention in the first of the 3 procurements that Lizette listed. One of them includes, the first one, the EAM, includes my firm as one of the I think 15 or so firms, 17, excuse me, firms that are listed there. So I'd like to retroactively abstain from that portion of the vote.
Okay, well, I think that's
Yes.
permissible.
What's going to happen anyway? Because I'm gonna just, we're gonna
It's
rewind the
noted.
tape, okay?
It's noted.
Just, you don't want me to rewind the tape on Cubic because I'm marginally unhappy as my colleagues are with Cubic's performance over the years.
We're
But I'm
all
not.
unhappy.
I know. I'm just not going to join the bandwagon. But I understand why it was raised, and I'm about this close to asking the CEO to come in front of us. But I'll hold that till next month.
Okay. The minutes of the October board meeting and the minutes of each committee have been distributed to members. Are there any corrections or omissions? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as distributed. The joint operating and capital program committees met jointly this morning. There are no items for bridges and tunnels or the railroads. And Board Member Mahaltzis, would you report on New York City transit items?
Yes, the New York City Transit Committee met this morning and has 3 items for full board approval. These 3 actions for the proposed estimated expenditure of $305.2 million. The Joint Committee recommend these items and I approve them, and I move them, excuse me.
Is there a second? Thank you, Dr. Rizzo. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The Transit Committee items are approved. May we have the capital program report as well, Ms. Mahaltzis?
Yes, the Capital Committee met jointly this morning and reports the following. There are 3 actions for a proposed expenditure of $14.4 million. The Joint Committee recommended these items, and I move them.
Is there a second? Again, Dr. Rizzo. All in favor? Any opposition or abstention? The items carry.
This concludes the report.
I think that concludes the capital report. I believe that concludes today's board business. Hearing no other board business, may I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Dr. Rizzo, again. Thanks, second, Mr. Herbst. All in favor? We are in adjournment. Thank you.
Check 1, 2, 3. Hey, 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 1, 2, 2, 2. Hey, yo, hey, check 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey, hey. Check, check, yo, yo, hey, 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 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. You hear me all right?
I just brought it up to community. Cool. It should be at whatever we used last time. Just get it.
All right, cool. All right, this is all set. Yep, never mind. Good. Check 1, 2. Hey, 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 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Hey, 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 check 1, 2, 3, 4. Cool.
Yes, just a test. All right. Good morning. Good afternoon.
So, when I took this job, there were a few things that I said we have to deal with, and this is sort of basic MTA stuff. We got to bring back ridership. We got to get service back up to the proper level. We have to get the MTA in a position of financial stability, and we have to make sure that the capital program is delivering on time and on budget. And I think today's, the board meeting we had today, including the committee meetings, brought the success on all of those fronts into relief, and I'm incredibly proud of where we are financially. The financial stability that this budget demonstrates is really extraordinary. Not to be overlooked, the crime numbers are amazingly positive. One of the things that people talked about when I got in was, do people feel safe on the subways? And not only are our surveys showing that they feel a lot safer, but this was among the very best months in history in terms of crime stats. So I was thrilled to hear from Chief Galata that the MTA, that he agrees the MTA and the NYPD have never had a better relationship. And obviously with the police commissioner continuing in her role, that is a real shot in the arm for continued progress on crime, and the numbers are fantastic. So it was a very, very positive package today. But then again, we want to hear from our friends in the media about what they are interested in. So here we go.
All right, let's start today with Dave Colon of Your Streets blog, everybody. Dave.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease. Jano, this is the first time in a few years that when the budget season starts in Albany, there's not going to be some kind of hair on fire MTA financial crisis or big financial package, or the capital plan kind of thing that you guys are up there asking for. But there is going to be a lot of talk about transit affordability, quote unquote. The governor has her nebulous ideas about it. The incoming mayor wants to make the buses free. I'm curious what you guys see as your role in this, what you want out of it, what you hope legislators understand about the MTA. And I just had a quick one after that.
Dave, you're right, that it is a sign of how much progress we've made, that unlike 2023 and last year or this year, with the capital program debate in Albany, we haven't got a huge agenda. So that is a sign of progress. The capital program, biggest ever, is in solid shape. The operating budget you heard about today is in solid shape. We don't have zero agenda, but we're going to be, it is. You're absolutely right that it is a much more focused agenda rather than a huge financial challenge. Listen, we're looking forward to working with the new mayor and his team, and we've been in touch with them. I know him pretty well from days before he ran for mayor. We have a good relationship, and as I said in my remarks, ain't nothing like having both a really pro-transit governor and a pro-transit mayor. Obviously, there's going to be debate about mechanics of accomplishing affordability, but we're thrilled to work with this duo and with a very pro-transit legislature in the session to come.
Can you just give us an update on what's going on with the Amtrak on Penn Access? Are you guys any closer to getting you wanted to start service in 2027?
Yeah, the Amtrak is, Jamie's here. I don't, there's not too much news on that front. Amtrak has said in principle that they're interested in discussing starting service, but they made it contingent on a reduction in Long Island Railroad service, which is a non-starter. We obviously want to start the Metro North service to deliver for people in the East Bronx. The elected officials in the Bronx are really ticked off about the way things have unfolded. And what I said during the board meeting, I really want to emphasize, is I just want the same kind of accountability for Amtrak that all of you and the public expect from the MTA. Amtrak has no accountability process for their projects. In the Northeast Corridor Commission, they don't even report on the status of all the projects, a lot of which are funded by, in effect, taxes from the commuter railroads. They can't even report on the status of the projects. So we really want to create a discussion about Amtrak accountability. How can it be that 8 years after I began pointing out on East Side Access how Amtrak's inability to support work that LIRR was doing to improve their infrastructure, it's this Amtrak's infrastructure, the same situation develops on Penn Access yet again, where they can't provide the outages that they promised, they can't provide the people that allow us to do work even when there are outages, and even when you have the outages and the work and the people, they because of their internal conflicts and confusions, they're not able to provide operations that allow us to get work done. So we just want an accountability discussion. We understand there's going to be a fight about money, but we want to create a culture of accountability, an environment of accountability, and most of all, we insist that they let us on the railroad so we can run service in 2027. Metro North runs 20-plus trains an hour frequently on a 2-track railroad in their territory. Amtrak runs 3 to 5 trains an hour on the Hellgate line. They can accommodate 3 trains an hour for Metro North as well.
All right, let's move on to Samantha Liebman of New York 1. Sam.
Thank you. This meeting killed me. I have to be live in 40 minutes.
I'm terribly sorry, Sam. Anything we can do to make it up to you.
Have you thought about, though, what if only 1 or 2 casino licenses are issued and not all 3? What's the backup plan?
Listen, the governor made a commitment, and I'm very, very confident that casino money is going to come through. But we have, you heard from Jay that we have taken a conservative approach. While in the past it was assumed to come in the early years of the casino process, it's now been spread over a 3-year period. So we're assuming that those license fees don't come, that 1 per year starting in 2026, then going 2027, 2028. So we're assuming that it may take a little longer than originally planned.
Did you assume?
I thought you were going to live shot.
Yeah, I have one more question. Did you also take into consideration the proof of payment and also the new fare gates in the equation? And earnings or?
Yeah. We have made projections based on our expectations about continued progress on the fare evasion issue. Yes, the projections factor that in, including a reduction in bus fare evasion.
All right, on to Stefanos Chen of the New York Times. Just no.
How's that?
Good.
Hi, Jano.
Hey.
Just a question on the switch over with Omni and getting rid of the last MetroCard purchases by end of year. I've just had some questions from readers about what that might mean generally for people who are still using the MetroCards into 2026. Is there going to be a date that you can give people as to when it will no longer be accepted?
It's at least 6 months.
Months.
Or at least 6 months we're going to continue to accept MetroCards. And the important thing is you can go to a customer service center. This did not used to exist, Steph. You don't have to come to Stone Street. When I got in here, to do a whole mess of transactions, including trading in old Metro cards, you either had to mail it in or you had to come to the MTA office on the side of this building on Stone Street. We now have 30 customer service centers where you can go and you can change, trade in your old Metro cards, and people have them in their sock drawer and all over, and turn them into Omni value on your Omni account or in an Omni card. So we're going to, that's the process we want to make sure people have an opportunity to execute on if they want to keep using Metro cards at least 6 months.
And just a part 2 on that, for some of your B2B clients, some of the larger nonprofits and companies that buy them in bulk,
yeah.
Do you have any guidance for them as to when they should stop making bulk orders in terms of if they're...
I don't remember the specific details. Jesse Lazarus isn't here, but we've been in touch with all of those companies about when they're going to stop being provided those unlimited Metro cards. Now, most of overwhelmingly the tax exempt, the tax benefited entities have already converted to tap and ride. But we're working with all those companies both the ones that had been buying Metro cards in bulk and also the ones who are using tax-exempt benefit cards.
Thank you.
And that work is ongoing.
All right, let's move down to the River Pavilion. Ry Rivard is here from Politico.
Thank
Ry.
you. Andy Byford has been doing the one-on-one and breakfast circuit. And I wonder, you said yesterday on the radio that you sort of weren't in the middle of Gateway, but I wonder if you're in the middle of sort of Penn and whether that expands or not, which I know is a big concern, whether it's a beautification project or an actual expansion. And I wonder if MTA has weighed in with Byford and that bidding process.
Yeah, when we talked to them, we're not part of the bidding process. For us, it's pretty simple. The governor, what happened was when the feds took over this project, after we had developed 30% drawings, the governor said, hey, it's okay. We have made a huge improvement to the Long Island Railroad area of Penn. If you guys want to take this over, you're going to pay for it. Be fruitful and go forth with success. And our position is, hey, we have a lease. It requires it doesn't permit them to tear up any portion of the Long Island Railroad area without our approval. And we'll see what comes out of the process that the Trump administration, through Andy Byford, is executing on. So we're not really being included in it by them, and that's okay. We're happy to help and consult about the design issues that might make it more attractive. But the one thing I know is that our Long Island Railroad customers have gone from 50% customer sat to 80% Ry in a very short time since we opened the new Long Island Railroad concourse under 33rd Street. And they're telling us, we don't want you to tear up the Long Island Railroad area all over again. So we're listening very closely to our customers. We're not going to sacrifice the Long Island Railroad customer experience for some other project.
All right, also down there in the River Suite is Michelle Kasky with Bloomberg News. Michelle.
Hey, Jeno. So again, with Penn Access, Amtrak made it clear in its recent letter to the MTA that it will not be providing additional money because of the delays that have incurred over this time. MTA has asked for additional money from Amtrak for these delays. Where do things stand with that?
We're going to fight it out in an arbitration process. We brought our lawyer to that presentation last month, Michelle, which you saw, and he articulated. But that's going to happen. Amtrak is responsible for the cost of these delays, and we're going to fight it out. The bigger question is, are they going to cooperate in letting Metro North run service on the Hellgate line into Penn Station so people in Co-op City and Parkchester and Morris Park can be served in 2027 as promised, rather than having to suffer the consequences of Amtrak's inability to support the project? And they're actually, it's a contract breach that they did, but it's not important for you and me to dialogue about that. That's going to be resolved in the arbitration process.
Will this just be solved with you and Amtrak's president just sitting down? I mean,
Michelle,
I hate to call it a beer summit, but can't you just have a beer summit with this guy?
Michelle, we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. This is not like a casual, two guys getting to know each other. And I understand that Amtrak wants to talk about like how it's like an emotional issue. What it's not. It's an issue, a fundamental issue of accountability. You all, every one of you, call for the MTA to be accountable for our projects. And we put on, every month, the Capital Program Committee, we report on the status of various elements of the capital program. And there's a ton of information that's, through open data is available to all of you. There's no comparable accountability from Amtrak. I have been talking about this, not I, but the MTA has been talking to Amtrak about their inability to support projects for as long as I've been at the MTA, 8 years. I walked in here and looked at East Side Access, and one of the huge issues on East Side Access was you're operating an Amtrak, you're trying to build stuff for Amtrak in their territory, but you can't get outages and staff support, same issues. and they've never managed to fix it. Through the Biden administration, at the Northeast Corridor Commission, we were talking about, would Amtrak allow us, the Long Island Railroad or Metro North or other qualified professionals, to come in when they couldn't provide the workers? And that didn't get agreed to. And they still control it, and they still don't make good on those commitments. So it's an issue of fact and accountability and professionalism. It's not an issue of, human chemistry between me and Roger Harris or anybody else. I have no animosity towards those people. I just want Amtrak to be accountable for what they're doing to projects, which has huge consequences financially and in terms of people's lives in this region.
All right, next up
What do
is
you wanna
Al.
say? Go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry.
I think I'll just go back to the beginning of your question, Michelle, and just add that actually, to their credit, Amtrak did not say that they were refusing to pay for the cost of delay in that letter. And they did say that they were willing to discuss 2027 service with us, which is our biggest priority. As the chair mentioned, there are some caveats that are unacceptable in that. And the other thing that was disappointing about that response so far is we haven't seen commitments from them to help us solve the problems, these fundamental problems that are holding back the work from getting done. And that's what we didn't see in that letter and that we would really like to see from Amtrak.
All right, now we're moving on to Alfonso Castillo, who is here today with Ed Quinn from Newsday TV. Alfonso.
Hi, Jenna. So a couple things have to do with the exchange with James O'Donnell related to the ID's investigation into the ID cards. First, when he asked for a briefing, you suggested that would have to be closed door. Why is that?
I will leave that up to the IG. I mean, if it involves investigations that are underway or disciplinary processes that are legally required to be confidential, so be it. But I'll leave it up to the IG to determine whether the material that he's going to share is of that nature. That's really up to him.
The other thing that board member O'Donnell said, he suggested that the workers who remained on the payroll skated. I know in most cases they paid suspensions or were suspended and without pay for a period. And I know some are still pending, but the reality is that most of the workers who were implicated do still work for the Long Island Railroad. Do you have an issue with that? And why is that the case? Why not go after termination for all of them?
Hi, Alfonso.
Hi, Rob.
Let me just state this once again. We are as angered, outraged, and disgusted with the behavior of these 36 employees as board member O'Donnell is. And that is why we took swift, decisive, and strong action against these employees, taking them out of service immediately without pay. So to say they're on the payroll, that's not factually true. They're not on the payroll. They're out of service. This was recognized by the Inspector General as to our actions. And the employee that you interviewed himself cited how we were sticklers for our policies. Now, with that being said, there's a process. We have to follow that process. There's a Railway Labor Act that we have to follow. We can't just arbitrarily act and violate their rights. We're going through that process. So whether an employee is fired or they decide not to face the consequences of their actions by resigning or retiring early, the end result is the same. There's financial impacts. There's diminishing pension. They will not get a full pension. They lose their medical benefits. There's even impacts to their rare retirement. So there's long-term impacts to that as well. We have acted decisively against these employees, and we will continue to do so. There are employees still out there that are facing termination. I've been there a long time, Alfonso, and we have taken unprecedented action against these employees. I'm confident in saying that, and that we're at the press conference the other day where the head of the largest labor organization, right, he seemed pretty outraged himself, and he doesn't condone this actions. He shares our outrage, I'll put it that way, against what was done, and we will not tolerate it, and we're moving forward with the disciplinary process.
Is it the case that with all the workers whose disciplinary proceedings are still pending, you'd be seeking termination for all of them?
I've stated it before, all the employees are facing discipline up to termination. You have to remember, the discipline cases, they have rights. It's a process, right? It's not a legal case, but it's a disciplinary case. It's based on the factual evidence provided. And as we have more concrete evidence, we're going for more severe punishment. And that's what we're doing in this case.
Thank you.
All right, next is Haley Brown of the New York Post.
How are you going to convince the mayor-elect that free buses are not a good idea, especially with concerns about the city and state's economies and potential funding gaps? You'd mentioned that you'll have some debates when you're in Albany, so what are you going to say to convince him?
I've articulated some of the issues, and I'm confident that with a pro-transit governor, a pro-transit mayor, we'll work out whatever issues remain.
What are
Question?
the issues that you articulate? Just if you could go into
You
some
can go
detail
back and
about
look
what the
at the
discussions will
clips.
look
I've
like.
talked in multiple different forums.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just looking for specifics.
I think we're asked and answered. Let's move on to Jose Martinez of the city, who is on the Zoom
I'm sure you're
equipment this
capable
afternoon.
of reading other publications, so please go ahead and help yourself. Go ahead, yeah.
Jose. Need to unmute Jose. We've got the little mute icon there. There you go.
Hello. Two questions. First, on Omni, given the number of speakers that address the issues that they say they continue to have with that system, will those issues be resolved in time for the new year? I'll let you answer that one, and then I'll try to remember my second question.
Jamie, do you want to talk about some of that?
I know that, that this is adopting a new technology within the system. I think we have to acknowledge that by and large it is working extremely well for the vast majority of our customers. It got us to the point where we were able to make the decision to sunset MetroCard. And of course, as we mentioned, we have at least the first 6 months of the year, for the last MetroCard users. But there's issues that arise day to day as we're managing a big system like this, and we're holding the vendor accountable, and they're getting it fixed. So we're confident that the system is going to be working.
And thank you, Jamie.
I just want to be clear that there is one of the issues that's important to emphasize is it is possible to sort of to see your balance and to look at your Omni account online. And we just need to make sure people are more aware of that. That word needs to get out a little more broadly, and it's part of what we're going to be doing. And you can go to any CVM, you can go to any of the vending machines and see what remains on your Omni card as well, in addition to other fare media that you're using. So we need to get that word out a little bit more broadly. Obviously, we heard some of that from the podium today, and we'll keep working at it. That's one of the reasons, Jose, that we've established these 30 customer service centers, because we want to, reach out into all the different New York communities rather than just forcing people to come to us or to use the phone or otherwise.
And thank you for that. And on to the second question, which I did remember initially. What makes New York different when you talk about SEPTA or CTA or other systems that are facing severe service cuts or fare increases? Fundamentally, in its most basic terms, why is New York in better shape?
I think the answer is pretty simple, which is we had a governor that addressed the fiscal cliff with the support of the legislature in 2023, and an MTA that was willing to squeeze really hard to save $500 million to make sure that we had a balanced budget. And that work is reflected in the budget that was presented today. That's the difference maker, Jose. I don't know all the details in every one of those other transit systems, but certainly in SEPTA's case in Philly, the governor and the legislature are having a dispute about whether to fund transit and how to fund transit and how much. And the consequence is they're living the fiscal cliff. They're going over. We don't have that because Kathy Hochul stepped up in 2023.
All right, let's go to the mezzanine. Craig Enriquez from CBS, New York.
How you doing?
Craig.
There was a bus driver assaulted on Monday. Kathy and Queen, do you have any info on that?
So we take the safety of our employees very seriously. I've said it before, employees come to work and they should be able to go home in the same condition that they came to work. And in this case, it didn't happen. The individual didn't take he didn't recognize the location where he was trying to go. The bus that he got on wasn't a bus that he thought it was, and ultimately assaulted our bus operator, which is despicable, right? We have cameras in every bus. We have cameras on every train. And, we're not going to stand for this. Like, we will, every instance in which one of our employees are assaulted, we will pull the video and we will provide that to NYPD, and we will support every effort to make sure that these individuals wind up behind bars.
All right, let's go to Ramsey Khalife from WNYC Gothamist and the On the Way newsletter. Ramsey.
Two questions. So in the final proposal budget document, if I'm understanding it right, the MTA is predicting just about a 0.9% drop in subway ridership for 25-26, but then a 1 to 2% in the subsequent years. Can you just explain what's informing that prediction?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's a drop. We're just being a little conservative. We've seen an increase in 2025 compared to what we had projected in 26. As we continue to see that increase in 26, we'll update the financial plan in July for that fare box revenue and ridership.
Okay. And just to follow up about FEMA, I mean, now that the federal government shutdown is over, have you or other MTA officials reached out to them, and what has to happen for this money to be guaranteed?
There's been continued outreach for some time. I mentioned to one of our board members, we really are counting on the New York delegation in Congress, especially some of our friends on the majority side, including at least one member who's the chair of the Homeland Security Committee, to help us get that popped out. It's stuck in the bureaucratic maze. There were a lot of things that were put on hold when the new administration came in. This was one of them, and a lot of them have come out, but this one needs. We may need some help to push it out. And I just continue to emphasize, it's calling on FEMA funds that were promised by the first Trump administration. And I know, there's a lot of partisanship in Washington, so I'm going to continue to remind folks this was not a Biden-era initiative, which sometimes gets things into drama. This was first Trump administration initiative.
And closing out the proceedings today is Evan Simcoe Bednarski of the New York Daily News. Evan.
Hey, Jana. I have to ask about the wheelwear, of course. So this may be a question for Demetrius. But to my knowledge, there are similar curves throughout the system and trains running at or near similar speeds. I'm just wondering if there's anything you could say about what you guys are thinking as to the root cause, now knowing that slowing them down through these curves doesn't wear the wheels out as much. How do we get there?
So, look, the great thing about what we've done at the MTA is look for opportunities to speed up the commute for customers, right? We've looked at every opportunity to make sure we can make the trip safely, as quickly as possible. And one of the things that we did was introduce new technology, new trains, and CBTC. CBTC allows you to go a lot faster within a short period of time. And so we have the ability to also make adjustments, right? Some instances you don't want to go the maximum speed through an area through CBTC. You may want to slow it down a bit. And that's what happened in this case. We have the ability to go faster, but we don't need to go as fast in these scenarios, and we slowed down on the curves that we identified the issue at.
And those curves are all along the QBL, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, that's Queens Boulevard line. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. Jamie, Jay, Demetrius, and Jano, good afternoon from Lower Manhattan.